at 4 p.m. There will be information on evacuation procedures, the new flood zones in Harlem, first aid care, emergency procedures for the disabled, go bags, a farmer's market, giveaways, and more. Music provided by a few of WHCR's hottest R&B and house DJs. That's Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day, Tuesday, September 22nd from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m., held on the Adam Clayton Powell Jr. State Office Building Plaza, located at West 125th Street and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard.
I found out on my way to Harlem, Ellington, you don't live around here. He moved away one day, so they say, from Harlem. I can hear his echo still. Now, you can't keep me away from where I was born. I was baptized by my daddy's horn. Now, you can't keep me away from where I was born. I was baptized by the jazz man's horn. Oh, I found out on my way through Harlem, Langston Hughes, he don't live round here. He moved away one day from his way here in Harlem. I know that Marvin Gaye used to play right here. Somebody say you can't keep me away from where I was born. I was baptized by my daddy's horn. No, you can't keep me away from where I was born. I was baptized to the sound of horns. Oh.
Good evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community. This is Stu. I'm here with Lena, and we have Dave online. Dave, are you there?
Of course I'm here.
Of course he's there. Welcome, Dave. How are you?
I am fine, but I don't know what we're going to cover today. Stu, what do you want to what are we doing?
We are going to be live on the air, as we are right now, talking about technology and community. And I thought, since I'm going to be meta about it, when you look for community online, what is the sign of lively community online? Or do you look to take your real life community and get them online? Because I know that's what you do. Mm-hmm. But I've done the opposite, where I go online finding community. Okay. I'm wondering if you've done it both ways.
I think both are valid. I've certainly spent a lot more time getting the communities that I'm in touch with online. And that's kind of my passion, and that's what I've been working on for the last 10 years or so. Myself and my partner, Doug Frazier, in our Digital Divide project. That's our mission. But certainly I've become more aware, and certainly with your influence, Lena, about the communities that are out there and my need to connect more with the online communities. Let's talk about that a little bit. What online communities are you in touch with, and which ones might our listeners be interested in connecting with?
So here's the trick about online communities, at least to me. To me, it's all about not the niche you're into, not the small little thing you're into, but the teeny tiny small little thing about that you like. Because there's a lot of people who are into crafting. Like, crafting is really popular. I myself, I enjoy crafting. But what does that mean? Well, for me, it means I like to crochet. But when you look at what does that mean? It means online, I find a community of crafters, but I don't just look for folks who are crafting. I look for folks who are crocheting. And then when you're online, you can start to find the micro niches where it's just people who, crochet only with bamboo. Like, it starts to get real specific.
Now, do you interact with them, Lena, or are you just watching videos, or what is the experience? What's the online experience?
So that part gets tricky. I do enjoy watching a video, especially like tutorial or instructional videos are popular in crafting spaces. But if you're going a bit more broadly as to which ones do I talk in, I am an extrovert in real life and I am an introvert online.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to. I think it's partially that I got online when I was very young. I was actually around 12 or 11 years old when I got online.
Wow.
And my parents, lovely, wonderful people, very understanding of like, okay, you want computer, you want online, let's make this happen, go for it. But they never thought, we should make sure she doesn't say anything anywhere as a child because she'll be able to look it up as an adult. And I can, and I have, and I go, wow, I could not grammar or
you can
sentence.
Find stuff from way back then, Lena?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell anybody where it is because it's
but it's there.
Embarrassment.
Wow.
And I spelled poorly, and I communicate, and I just kind of shouted out my theories to the world, but I didn't have great theories because I was 12.
Right. Well, you're raising one issue that is like ding, 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 ding for me, and that is whatever you put out there, it's likely to be out there forever.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least for your lifetime.
Oh, what's great is I've had both problems. The problem of something that is out there forever and something I've put out there that I want to find again, and there's no finding it.
Wow.
So I've had both problems with digital preservation, stuff that is preserved too well and stuff that is just gone.
Now, Dave, as a reporter, do you have much interaction with online communities? I know you're involved with the International Internet Society. Would you consider that an online community?
They're spending about $5 million a year to make it so. Some part of which is going to actually fly people once or twice a year to events.
Oh, cool. See, that's...
And you're saying, Lena?
So the part that I want to know is what makes that, like, do you hold there to be a separation between the idea of, or differences between a professional association and, like, a community? Or is online that the same thing? Too abstract of a question. I apologize.
Let's simplify it a little.
Okay.
Most of us have an active online community on Facebook.
Okay, that's an online community. That's true.
Oh no, you're talking about a niche Facebook group, though, right? Is it a particular group or just all of
niche,
Facebook?
The friends that you happen to have.
Okay.
Whether it be 150 or 1,500 or 6, you're creating a community that's talking to each other all the time. Once upon a time, I was active in the New York Amateur Computer Club. That goes all the way back, although they're still meeting at NYU, and Joe King and Hank T are still doing it. And Joe said, why do we come together? It's not really because we find computer information here, although we may too, but we want to come together. It's a chance to make friends. And that is a basic human need that is felt, well, I think I may have said this. The guy running Vodafone India said that they were selling cheap cell phones to teenagers in the most rural, poorest parts of India who check their Facebook 8 times a day. And so there's enormous power when you bring people together that way. The Internet Society has got some leadership that has ambitions about keeping the Internet the way they think is a good way. I'm deliberately not using their rhetoric on it. And they have a lot of money because the people who register the .org directory pay indirectly to the Internet Society. So they get $30 million a year.
Ooh.
And they very consciously are building an international community of people who mostly agree with them in order to be a huge force in how the Internet is ruled around the world. And it's run by an ex-Verizon lobbyist who understands how to do this kind of thing. She means well. And they are building chapters. They are hiring people at $200,000 a year to organize chapters in every country in Africa so they have a constituency, and they bring them together. I just got a LinkedIn request from somebody in Kenya that I'm sure I don't know.
So what is their purpose? What is their purpose, Dave? What is this political action, organizing? What's going on here with that, with the third world recruiting in particular?
The folks who run the Internet Society and choose are almost all American, with a few Europeans who agree with the Americans. They have their notion of freedom, which begins with having no government getting in the way of what you do on the Internet. That's pretty attractive. But the problem is that the people who are causing more trouble on the Internet or getting in the way more, I believe, are the giant U.S. corporations. I'm more worried about Verizon censoring my Internet than about the government of Cameroon. I can always get around government censorship, but I can't get around the censorship of the people who do. Well, I probably could get around the censorship. I couldn't get around it for TV and video, though, which is where the money is.
Now, when you say censorship by these big carriers, by Verizon and some of the other carriers, exactly what are you talking about? Censoring your online language or limiting your access to content? What do you mean? What's your fear there?
In the U.S., the battle is fairly mild. The phone companies and the cable companies want to make some money off all the video you watch. They have a monopoly on connecting to you. AT&T has a monopoly on connecting to 16 million people or whatever the number is.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that Netflix can get to those 16 million people except going through AT&T, and they want to set up a toll booth. This is the substantive fight over net neutrality here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the telcos wanting to make money off every video you watch. And the cable companies are even more scared, although they've been behaving better. Because, well, I won't go into that. I don't know the answer to that, so I better not go into it here.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're talking about gatekeeping, essentially, is what you're saying. Well, that's the kind of the focus
and it can get exaggerated, as it is in the net neutrality debate, thinking that Verizon is going to turn around and not let you listen to, not let you connect over the net to a competitor to their video service.
Mm-hmm.
They just slow it down so much that you can't watch it,
mm-hmm.
which was happening here for a while. Verizon, in particular, was doing it. More direct censorship is happening in other governments that are like ours, Germany and Britain. What do you think about the latest news from Europe, where they're arresting people for being Syrian, in Hungary in particular, but at the German border probably soon?
I think it's tragic. Folks being driven from their homes and nowhere to go. I mean, it's very existential.
When we talked last week, we talked about how welcome it was that Germany was opening their arms and how the U.S. should do the same. And I'm Jewish, so I know what can happen if you can't get the boat to land with the refugees.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happening on an unbelievable scale. Not unbelievable, but far beyond what most people realize. And we see the pictures every day on the internet.
I would
The world
say
has become a smaller place.
I would say that it's not so unbelievable as it is difficult to comprehend. Because this is one of those things where it's helpful to have, because sometimes people will try to explain like how much money something is, because if somebody says $1 billion to me, that's so much that I can't.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And in terms of like this happening to so many people and what that's doing and how it affects so many different economies, but beyond economies, human lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's so I would agree. It's not unfathomable. It's just incredibly difficult to comprehend. And I know more than a few people who can't engage with like just most news because the way of the sensationalism and the you have the idea that there's singular choices or solutions to any given problem.
Black and white.
So
Pro and con, up and down.
So it gets difficult.
Right or wrong?
Yeah, there you go, Dave.
I prefer looking at some things that way, not looking for the shades of gray. Some things are right or wrong. And this is one of them. No matter what the cost is. And it turns out in the case of Germany, in the long run, and the U.S., in the long run, probably better off taking in more immigrants. Immigrants tend to be adults whose education is paid for already somewhere else, so you don't have 18 years of dependency as a child. And the people who get around and move are usually not the elderly retirees, who also don't contribute.
Okay.
Economically.
How does this tie into your conversation about the technology, Dave? How does this tie into...
Back to technology, which is where I was going before you people got moved.
Sorry.
I'm on the question of what is censorship, what makes sense. Germany now has asked Facebook to massively censor posts. Now, I happen to want to censor, although I understand that it's probably a mistake, the same post, because they want Facebook to censor hate speech against the people that the right wing in Germany doesn't like coming into their country. Does this make sense? This is a real issue around the world. And in Germany, the Merkel herself has publicly asked Facebook to start censoring the attacks on the immigrants. And Facebook is sort of going along with it and sort of trying to keep away from it because it's very expensive to look at that many posts in order to find the problems.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very slippery slope to me, Dave. Once you go down that road, where do you draw the line and how do you draw the line? And, what other issues might it spill over into? It's difficult.
And
I mean, it's censorship. I mean, there's no other way to call it. But now we're talking about hate speech, but, where do you draw the line between hate speech and free speech? I guess that's the difficulty.
So I feel like that's often the way it's framed when Americans are talking about it. Is it's just freedom, which is of the most importance, versus censorship. Whereas it doesn't bring into question, by censoring hate speech, do you decrease violence? Because that's part of it. It's the idea that if you stop people from getting into a frenzy, if you can slow the hate speech, because it's not like hate speech does have legal definitions. Like it has some definitions around it that can be used to identify it. It doesn't tend to be well-reasoned argument. So that's one of those ones where I'm like, nah, I'm in the shades of gray on this one.
So you think that can be legislated, Lena, and
it is other places
arbitrated by a jury or a judge or
It is.
court. Mhm.
It's something that's engaged with that way. In basically any country that's had fascism of particular ilks starts to try and figure out what do we do with hate speech is a process of othering, where you kind of just emotion and violence applied to some group on the grounds that group is destroying the way of life or whatever. But yeah, it is possible. I think it is possible to legislate it. The question in this case is it possible for Facebook to figure out how to do it? And there's a part of me that there are other forums online where if you type in certain, like, in fact, even if you use speech to text in Google Docs, because it does have that ability, you can talk to it. If you say dirty words, it comes back with some asterisks. So it is possible if you had, I would probably just put a little filter on of if certain words are included, have it say, are you sure this is something you want to post, or do you need to learn what hate, or is it about hate speech? Click here to learn what hate speech is, and have any of them that get flagged for those keywords reviewed by either algorithmic, but more likely human, which is incredibly time consuming. So I don't know if Facebook has the ability, but it depends on how the legislation surrounding their company works in the countries that say hate speech is, because some places will go, you're the one providing the megaphone. So they can get in trouble.
And the difficulty for me, I agree with what you're saying about hate speech, but the fear that I would have is that government would decide that speech that perhaps undermines their authority,
absolutely,
that questions their leadership, that provokes dissent, could fall into the category of censorship.
Absolutely. And that's part of the difficulty of it. I agree.
So
It's
Dave,
coming very close to that in England right now.
how so? Break that down for us.
In England right now, the government is essentially insisting on censorship of anything that advocates ISIS, or what they call terrorism in the Middle East. If I turn around and said, well, we all know a lot about ISIS, and you can judge your own opinion, but they're a better government, they give a better government than the one the United States is supporting in Iraq, and if you had to choose between them, you'd choose ISIS. Am I advocating ISIS? I happen to disagree with that statement, but it's not a crazy one. The folks that the U.S. is supporting, and the British are supporting, and the French are about to come in with bombing, according to today's newspapers, are murderous thugs. The current Iraqi government qualifies on that. They may not be as nasty murderous thugs as Saddam Hussein, and the folks that we're supporting in Syria are probably worse, but I don't have enough facts to be sure of that. So if I turned around and said that, am I advocating terrorism? If I said somebody should overthrow the government in Iraq because they're murderous thugs? In Britain, they're very close to saying you can't say that. In Egypt, you are, in fact, like possibly a journalist in jail because you did honest reporting of the opinions of Morsi, the last freely elected president, who is now has a death sentence over his head by the current government. And they have several hundred people with death sentences related to the Muslim Brotherhood, and thousands in jail, probably tens of thousands. Okay, the Egyptian government has decided that even ordinary reporting about what the Muslim Brotherhood is supporting them, and literally put 3 Al Jazeera reporters in jail. An American reporter was picked up for reporting from Kurdistan, because the Turks have decided to go to war against the Kurds right now, mostly for domestic political reasons, but it's real lives that are being lost in the bombing. So, yes, there is censorship more and more, and many of us believe that censorship is a mistake. Now, should we have a Magna Carta and a Bill of Rights in cyberspace? I'm bringing that in because some very interesting people are going to be discussing that tomorrow in Brooklyn, as well as on the web. May I announce the event?
Go for it.
Please do.
Okay. Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the web, last year on the 25th anniversary of the web, said, we need a digital Magna Carta. We need a Declaration of Rights. So it is now literally the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta itself. And at Brooklyn Law School, they are doing a day-long seminar on the legacy of the Magna Carta. It's got heavy-duty legal types all morning, but the particular one, and it's free, and anybody who wants to go is more than welcome. They ask you to register online ahead. At 2:45, and it is going to be on the air, there's going to be a session, Building a Magna Carta for the Digital Era, collaborative drafting of a citizen's charter for cyberspace. It's a panel led by Jonathan Askin, who's now teaching at Brooklyn Law. And on that panel are some pretty substantial people. John Perry Barlow, who was a co-founder of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Dan Gilmore, who is now a professor, but used to be probably the top technology columnist in the world at the San Jose Merc, Reed Hunt, who was the FCC chairman here in the United States back in Clinton's day, Harvard professors, Jeff Pulver, who created Voice on the Net. That is going to be streamed by the Internet Society. And let me give that address, livestream.com/ no spaces, all lowercase, Internet Society / Magna Carta. I'll give it again in a few minutes for people who want to get a pen out. Now, that's going to be an interesting debate. When we come back from the break, let me ask you two guys what you think should be on the Declaration of Rights for the Internet.
Okay, thank you, Dave. We're going to step out for a minute. We'll be right back.
Harlem has its own radio station, WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
You and your family are connected by routine, and you stick to it. But what if a disaster strikes without warning? What if your day's routine is disrupted and you can't reach your family? Have you planned for that? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, be ready. Get a kit. Make a plan. Be informed. Learn how at www.ready.gov. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Ad Council.
September is National Preparedness Month. WHCR 90.3 FM, the City College of New York, and Harlem Hospital invite you to Harlem Preparedness Day on Tuesday, September 22nd from 12 noon to 4 p.m. There will be information on evacuation procedures, the new flood zones in Harlem, first aid care, emergency procedures for the disabled, go bags, a farmer's market, giveaways, and more. Music provided by a few of WHCR's hottest R&B and house DJs. That's Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day, Tuesday, September 22nd from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m., held on the Adam Clayton Powell Jr. State Office Building Plaza, located at West 125th Street and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard.
Okay, we're back. You just heard a promo about a very important event happening next Tuesday, noon to 4.
No. Oh,
I'm sorry. We'll get back to Dave's event on the on live stream in just a moment. But
I misinterpreted. Just wanted to on the phone.
Just wanted to follow up on that announcement that our listeners just heard about Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day. Next Tuesday at the State Office Building Plaza, outside on the plaza from noon to 4, we're going to be talking about emergency preparedness, how to get your family ready and prepared for the next Hurricane Sandy, the next major blackout, the next big storm. You guys need to have a plan. You don't want to ad-lib when the power goes down. So come on out noon on Tuesday, the Harlem State Office Building. Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day. Hope to see you there.
So we were asked to answer this question of the Magna Carta for digital or human rights and whatnot, documentation thereof. But I want to backtrack one moment and talk about a little bit of an article that I kept trying to figure out how to get up on my phone, and I couldn't. Had to go over to the computer next to Stu. And it's called Airbnb for Refugees. And it's happening over in Germany right now. And it's a German group that is matchmaking between refugees and Germans and having people move in together.
Wow.
So there are host groups, host folk who are saying, you know what, we want this to happen. And so it's this Berlin-based group called Refugees Welcome. And their little, I guess their elevator pitch, as one would say in the startup community, is Airbnb for refugees. But instead of paying to live in these circumstances, it's helping people who are fleeing from Afghanistan, from Mali, Nigeria, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria. There are 780 Germans who have signed up in the hopes of hosting people, and at this point only 26 people have been placed into private homes. But it's interesting. It looks like this kind of very grassroots, very internet aware project, but it's people helping people on this very topic.
Wow.
So I thought I would just bring it up because before we get into the kind of higher theory level of what is going on with the idea of rights being protected online and all of that stuff, there are people who are doing interesting things to help their communities, and they're using internet tools to talk about it, to help make it happen. And it was great. So I saw this article in the Guardian, and it's a fairly recent article, and it's titled Airbnb for Refugees Group Overwhelmed by Offers of Help.
That's good stuff, Lena.
Yeah.
As you said, people helping people on the ground without any intermediary to orchestrate.
Well, this is an intermediary. The group themselves is indeed,
okay.
But the thing is that group, people make groups. So there's an intermediary, but it's not government or business based. It is a different sort of organization. But it seems that they're trying to have this method of hosts and refugees broadened out to other EU countries, but it's starting out of Berlin. And over the weekend, thousands of Icelanders offered to accommodate Syrian refugees in their own homes in an open letter to the government in response to the migration crisis. And it's kind of fascinating. So the PR site, the span of ages of people who want to host ranges from 21 to 65. Most people are living in flat shares and have a room or can make there be a room. And but there are offers that have come from married couples and single moms and people who just care about other people. And part of the idea is that accommodating a refugee doesn't mean you're losing out on the rent of the room, because the costs are either covered by a job center or a social welfare payments, or a quarter of the rents are paid for via a micro donation to the group, to the site. So it's not just asking. It's not just saying, take on a burden for folks who can't, but it is for folks who can, absolutely. It was an interesting take on it. I don't know much more about it than the Guardian article I read, but I was sitting here trying to remember the name.
I've got the site in front of me.
Yeah.
And it's called www.refugees-welcome.net.
Yeah.
Okay, that's refugees-welcome.net. And it's exactly the kind of thing that you hope the Internet will enable us to do. It's the kind of thing that any local Christian community used to do for any of their members. And many local Christian communities wanted to offer that kind of service to people who didn't happen to be the members. There's lots of sanctuary in the United States for Mexicans, most of them based out of Christian communities. So this is an online community helping, which is what real-world communities of service always did. RefugeeWelcome.net.
Dash. There's a dash in there, right? Welcome.
Dash in between refugees and welcome.
Okay. But I thought that this was a pretty fitting go-between for where does internet, how does this change the conversation? And the idea of all those folks in Iceland sending this letter is just, that warms my heart.
That's fascinating stuff. I mean, talk about connecting global communities. Talk about online communities.
Yep.
It doesn't get any better than that.
But for the question of should there be an online Magna Carta, my answer is very concise and very simple. I don't know.
Okay.
I've encountered the notion a number of times. It's been floated by me, and somehow I always... Now, my profession is I am a government documents librarian. I professionally work with some of the most dry government material and international and all sorts of materials that are kind of dry, and many of them incredibly idealistic in their formulation. But it's all... A lot of what I deal with is legislative, some judiciary, but a lot of it is legislative or executive in nature. And the main thing I've always gone is, so who's enforcing this Magna Carta? Like, what does it mean? How would people vote on it? What body pushes it? And I've just always kind of gone, I don't know if I want an internet that is the shape that can vote in that manner, which is a strange response, because the idea of those ideals being out there, being in a readable form, is something I like, because I like when people put forward, this is good stuff we want and this is how we want it, because I do think that pushes for change. Like, I appreciate that Google's company motto is "Don't be evil." I think that's a good motto that more companies should have. Although, where's the enforcement? How are they preventing themselves from being evil? Are they encouraging their employees to say, hey, I think this might be evil? Is that something that's part of their corporate culture or not? And I think the answer to that is not really, but kinda.
Yeah, it's not that black and white. I kind of agree with your I don't know answer. You know, one of the first questions that comes to my mind is, my understanding of the Magna Carta as I read history is it was written for the landed class, for a very exclusive group of people that got the rights under the Magna Carta. So I'm not sure what that means when we're talking about the internet and a Magna Carta for the internet. Is that truly everyone? The Magna Carta did not envision that. So, Dave, maybe you can tell us a little more about what the Internet Society is envisioning with this proposal.
This is not an Internet Society event.
Okay.
The Internet Society is simply has a volunteer, Jolie, who's out there live streaming it so people can get to it without going down to Brooklyn Law School.
So who is the sponsor?
Brooklyn Law School.
Okay.
And this particular panel is headed by Jonathan Askin, a friend who is professor there. And I'll get to that. But let me mention that there is also a session on secrets of the archives, why we preserve documents in the digital age.
Oh, I like
that our
it.
resident librarian might find interesting. That's at 10:15 in the morning.
Do you have any idea if that's also being streamed, or will I?
That's also being streamed
Sweet. Okay.
on the schedule I'm looking at.
Am I going to be able to find the link to this on comtech.nyc? Is that our show?
Yes, I'll have it up in.
What's up? What's our fight again, Lena? Let me hear that again.
Comtech, T-E-C-H, right?
TECH.NYC.
Yeah, what I like about that is I don't have to remember other URLs. I'll just go there after the show and check the schedule that's linked to it from there. Because I'm not writing stuff down. I'm not doing it. Just going to remember that one URL.
NYC, and it will also have refugees.welcome-welcome.net.
Oh, good.
And everything else that we want to put up there. And I'll give you guys passwords so you can post too.
Yay, post it.
Yeah. But what are they going to provide? I'm on the BBC side. It really is convenient to have this internet thing. And the BBC library, the BBC article describes what the British Library itself did, looking for suggestions, got 3,000 suggestions with what people thought should be in a digital Magna Carta. The first one is not let companies pay to control it, and not let government restricts our right to information. The second, allow freedom of speech. The third, be free from government censors in all countries. 6 is be free from mass surveillance.
I like the sound of that.
Okay. And 5 is be available for all those who wish to use it. These are definitely plausible things. This is on there. And as you were saying, it gets really complicated. And that's why it's definitely not the Internet Society, although the top people at the Internet Society happen to agree with this. But I know the people who are speaking, or several of them. Do you think government should regulate access to telephones and voice?
I'm not terribly inclined towards that.
No, I don't think so.
Well, that's what you're going to hear from 3 of the people there.
Is that they
That
should
mo-
or shouldn't?
It's going to get more complicated in a minute. Okay. Jeff Pulver, in the year 2000, essentially invented Skype. Maybe it was the year 1998. And to connect to the phone system with his new voice over IP system, he had to go through the FCC, which sat on it for 4 years.
Ow.
And he will never forget that during this time, some folks in Europe came up with Skype, became billionaires, while the FCC was holding him up. His lawyer in that case was same Jonathan Askin, who's at the Brooklyn Law School. And Dan Berninger worked for Pulver at the time. And those are 3 of the people who are going to be talking. So they see the biggest freedom as freedom from government control. When we hear the digital rights thing, and that's what they're going to say, Jeff and Dan were 2 of the only credible opponents to the net neutrality proceeding at the FCC. They said that you shouldn't have the things we're worrying about with net neutrality happening, but getting government involved is going to muck things up so much that it's not worth it. Dave Farber also took the opinion. That's the only legitimate argument against net neutrality. The rest all fall apart when you get to know them. But there's the other side. How do you protect from the Google's, Facebook's, Verizon, and the power that they have? Well, when they don't have any competition, and in much of the United States, about a third of the United States, the only way you can get a decent internet speed is by going to the cable company. 90% of the searches in Europe go to Google, and Facebook dominates the community bases and the communication in India. So you have corporations with enormous power, and I can give you not millions, but many, many examples of how they use this power in a way that I find offensive. And how do you deal with it if you say, under no circumstances should government do anything? Which is the official position of the United States government in all international stuff, except when we want to protect Hollywood from people copying their stuff and things like that. So we have the things. You can say you can put Mein Kampf up there very freely according to U.S. rules, but only if you're not abridging copyright. And that similar attitude is taken by Australia and Britain, much stronger than by the U.S. They're actually making the local phone companies shut down sites that point you to files that may have been done. So,
okay, Dave, if you can, I just want to go back to Lena's question about the Magna Carta. And it sounds like what you're saying is government would enforce it, or how would it be enforced? Is it enforceable? What kind of mechanism would monitor that?
Well, the answer is none, except the power of the vast community that could be inspired by Tim Berners-Lee, whomever, to come against the power of whoever does it, whoever abridges it. Does that have a lot of power? Do citizens have a lot of power to come together? Sometimes. 98% of the time they don't. That important political decisions are made by those with power, and it never gets to the front page of the New York Times and to most people's thinking. But on some issues, that certainly is possible. And you certainly can be a moral leader putting out ideas that China should give up on the idea of the harmonious society without attacks on the system, on the government, on the Communist Party, which is the official law in China, and abridges freedom of speech, as Americans know it. Will moral suasion help? You guys know as much as I do about that. But the problem with one point of view, and it turns out the United States government has the same opinion, that you keep government as far away from anything on the internet as possible. Now, the reason the U.S. government has a massive worldwide effort, well-staffed and well-funded, to keep government away is because we want to protect the freedom of the NSA to do what the NSA does so well. So they don't want Nigeria or even Germany to have any say about what goes over the internet and what happens on the internet. It might get in the way of our surveillance state. And the 14 folks from three-letter agencies who went to the big ITU wicket would not dare to protect freedom of speech the way anybody on this call thinks of it. They were there to protect the freedom of the NSA. And that's why the point that you just made a few minutes ago, Stu, about the Magna Carta, as you get into the history, the Magna Carta didn't give people rights. Mm-hmm. It gave the peers of the realm, the very few barons, far less than 1% of the population, certain rights, like a trial by jury, but they didn't extend it to the other 99%, which is why I hate the idea that Tim took the digital Magna Carta title as opposed to digital Bill of Rights.
Mm-hmm.
But Timbo is British, and it's a powerful thing. But there's definitely a split in the international arena on this between those who say government should do nothing and those who say if government does nothing, the corporations will have the power and abuse it, and individuals will have the power to bully, which is a big issue in England and Australia, be obscene, be hateful, and so on. In Germany, this is coming up, as I say, as a key issue, because there are a lot of really ugly things being put on the web about what to do with immigrants. I suspect some of them say they should be burned at the stake.
Oh, that
It's
sounds
that bad.
That sounds
And a lot of
much too flowery of language.
Well, most of it is less direct, and that's why you can't define hate speech very well, because most of it is going to be on the borderline wherever you draw that borderline. In Germany, the government wants the censorship of hate speech. And the current situation is the Attorney General, and in a speech, she's President or Prime Minister? I think she's President of Germany, supported him, saying that Facebook should eliminate hate speech, which actually Facebook has in their terms of service that they will take down. Where is it now? Well, it's not working. The German press is loaded with examples of things that Facebook didn't take down, even if people clicked on the button that said, this is a problem post. So the Germans want Facebook to enforce it, and Facebook isn't. So Germany has requested formally the Attorney General to Facebook that they have the people who do the censorship of hate speech physically be in Germany, so that they would have to follow the German law on this subject, as opposed to happen to be German speakers in the Philippines who are cheaper and don't have to follow German law. And Facebook is saying, go jump in the lake. We are bigger and more powerful than the government of Germany, and we have better lawyers. Kevin Martin's working for them now. The former USFCC chairman happens to be in charge of this stuff. And refusing the request by the government of Germany to have people in Germany censor the German Facebook. Now, if you were a politician, what would you do if you had a problem like this? Something that people wanted action on.
Hold a hearing. Hold a hearing.
You know what the politicians do in that case. They form a committee.
Right.
And that's what Facebook is saying. They're saying, Germany, we hear your concerns. These are very important issues, and we are going to form a committee to come up with a better policy. But we sure as heck are not going to put people in Germany to do the censorship, because we happen to be evading hundreds of millions of dollars in German taxes by not having anything in Germany and maintaining our European headquarters in Ireland where the taxes are lower. Mm. And if they had a lot of people in Germany, they might have to pay German taxes. Mm-hmm. France, Italy got through Parliament, but eventually got killed. It was called the Google tax for the same reason. And Google periodically threatens to jump out of Spain or France if something is going on they don't like, such as taxes. Issues that are there. Well, tomorrow, if you want to have an opinion on this, 3 of the 8 folks talking, have a very strong opinion the most important freedom on the Internet is not freedom of speech, not freedom of protection from the companies that own the Internet, but freedom from government action that would slow down innovation on the Internet. And Jonathan Askin, as a lawyer, won what was called the Pulver decision, which legalized VoIP in the United States. And hence, if feel really strongly on that subject. They're both intelligent enough to see the other side, and there are plenty of people who can see the other side also on the panel.
So what time is it? What time is this tomorrow, Dave?
Again, which I'll put up on Comtech. What's the
what
address?
It's live
for
stream.
the German Airbnb.
I'm sorry. I wanted to give out the information for the digital Magna Carta discussion at Brooklyn Law School. Just one more time.
Sure, I was going to that next.
Okay.
Digital Magna Carta is going to be a session from 2:45 to 4:15, and it is available from livestream.com/Internet Society/Magna Carta. No spaces or dashes. They're having, and if we have the rest of the time, I want to talk digital vellum since we have a librarian here. At 10:15, they're having why do we preserve documents in the digital age? And that's a problem we'll talk about. The other one that we talked about is what was being called Airbnb for the immigrants. And I let that off my screen.
Okay, we will have
With
that
immigrant
posted
welcome, I think.
On comtech.nyc, comtech.nyc. That's the website of our show, Community and Technology. And Dave, you'll post that information as well as the Magna Carta seminar discussion. You'll put that up for folks?
6:05. I will post that. The site to see the international website of this movement is www.refugees-welcome.net, not .com.
Okay. Well, listen, we're winding down here. I want to thank Dave and Lena and our listening audience for joining us in this fascinating conversation. Stay tuned next week for more from Community and Technology next Wednesday, 5 p.m. Stay tuned. Coming up at 6, WHCR News with Brother Bill.
Skylark, have you anything to say to me?
It's WHCR, the boys all home.
It's 84 degrees in Harlem. Good evening. This is Bill DeFosse, WHCR 90.3 News. Manners Restaurant on Frederick Douglass Boulevard has reopened after passing a health department examination. Tonight's tonight. Dr. Ben Carson is gaining on the leader in GOP presidential primary battle. Just 4 percentage points separate the famous neurosurgeon from Donald Trump. Ben Carson is pulling nearly even with the GOP frontrunner, according to a New York Times CBS News poll. The retired neurosurgeon has jumped to 23% in the poll to be released tomorrow morning. An aide to Governor Mario Cuomo, who was shot in the head with a stray bullet during a Labor Day Juve soup celebration, has been declared brain dead. The victim's heartbroken family said today. He and his brother were attending a Juve celebration on Bedford Avenue in Crown Heights about 3:45 a.m. on September 7th, hours before the West Indian American Day Parade, a separate event. When gunfire erupted, officials said the two ran for cover inside a parking lot, but a wild shot hit Gabe in the top of his head. Federal and city investigators nabbed 10 people for their role in a citywide synthetic marijuana ring, selling packets of the drug with names like Psycho, AK-47, and Blue Caution, the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office announced today. The crew imported about 1,300 kilograms of the dried synthetic drug, also known as K2, or spice, from China, which they divided into about 260,000 packets that sold at about $5 a piece at dozens of stores and bodegas throughout the city. Federal prosecutors charged that despite sometimes being called synthetic marijuana, this is not marijuana. It can have unpredictably severe and even lethal effects. The chemical compound is produced in China and then shipped to the United States as a powder. The powder is then mixed with chemical solvents and added flavors to make a liquid that is sprayed onto tea leaves resembling marijuana. Bihara said in a prepared statement that China is becoming to spice what Colombia has been to cocaine. The drugs were processed and packaged in a large facility on Light Street in the Bronx, where people from shelters and drug treatment centers tend to congregate. It's 84 degrees in the city. Temperature is going to be cool and clear tonight. Temperature's down around 63. Nice sleeping weather. Mets are in Miami. Wrong. Mets are home tonight. That's right. The Yankees are in Miami. And this is Bill DeFosse, WHCR 90.3 News. Bulletins or alerts at any time. And now, back to you in the studio.
Come on. Yeah. You're listening to WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
The City College of New York's Division of Humanities and the Arts presents A Happy End, directed by Jennifer Miranda Holmes, September 10th through September 19th. Set in 1932 Berlin, A Happy End is a story of a Jewish family faced with the rise of the Nazi Party, grappling with one of life's most fundamental questions. Should they stay in their beloved Germany or flee to America? A Happy End, September 10th through the 19th at Aaron Davis Hall, located at West 135th Street and Convent Avenue. Tickets are available at the Aaron Davis Hall box office. For showtimes or more information, call 212-650-6900. That's 212-650-6900.